So it's Danny Flexen here for Seconds Out. Delighted to be joined by my good friend Anthony Crolla, former world champion, here via freebets.com, who we're always appreciative of. Anthony, how are you? How's everything going?
I'm good, thank you, Dan. Really good. Obviously, boxing wise, I was watching a little bit of the Olympics. Yeah, the Olympics. It's a bit of a quieter time now, isn't it? If there is such thing as a closed season, now the Manchester show on August 24th is got postponed. It's sort of a bit of a quieter time in the boxing world, but obviously, in that there is fight dates coming up, so I'm busy coaching the fighters. And yeah, mate, all good, all good.
How's that postponement of the August show and moving some of the undercard to another show? How's that affected your training with Rihanna? Rhiannon, rather.
It made me sort of give her a bit of a wind down week, sort of a bit of a deload week, because she was very fit and she was almost ready to go then. So the fact it got put back, it was just, listen, we took out a few things. We stopped any sort of serious hard work, sort of worked a little bit more on the technical side of things, which was nice. And it's done that, that's what it did. And then we looked to sort of peak at a later date, which is obviously very important because we don't want to overcook her. And that's some of the adjustments you've got to make. I mean, obviously, Rhiannon and Terry are fortunate in the sense where they're only going a month later now, whereas the bill has been moved sort of 2 months later, where that's a bit different, isn't it, for the other undercard fighters?
Yeah, so how does that kind of work now when she gets back into the gym? Are you kind of restarting from kind of week 6 of camp, or how does it work?
Yeah, well, that's it, that part of camp. But still, Rhiannon, she wants to be in the gym daily, where we had to give her a few days off. Let's give her a few days off, have a few days off the diet and stuff like, it's maintain your weight. You don't need you going any lower and stuff like that. But we could sort of go over a few things more where the sessions wasn't as hard graft, but you could work on things on, you know what I mean? Where, when you're in a real business part of camp where the hard graft and stuff, you don't always get that. I will always make sure there's certain days where they're a little bit more technique based. But we probably had a week or two of that.
As you said, that's now moved to September, but it's not the biggest show in September. That award goes to the Riyadh
It
season
was.
debut over in the
Mm-hmm.
UK, headlined,
Yeah.
of course, by Anthony Joshua, Daniel Dubois. I read your column on that fight. But just wanted to
Yeah.
talk about a couple of elements of it. Kieran Farrell, someone you fought and know very well since
Yeah.
the contest as well. He's now an integral part of Daniel Dubois' team alongside Don Charles.
Yeah.
Knowing Kieran as you do, what do you think he's brought to that unit?
Mate, do you know what? I think Kieran and Daniel, I think it's one of the maddest partnerships in boxing. I really do. Because obviously, I've met Daniel a handful of times, but he's very quiet, isn't he? And he's very reserved. Whereas K is like a million miles out. Like, you would have met, yes, bro, you okay, bro? And you see him like, even like, he's one of the hardest working men in boxing without a doubt. And like, you see it even like, obviously, he's with the fighters, but then even with he'll do a lot of sort of PTs all with a lot of talented amateurs, and his energy on the pads and stuff with them, some of the top amateurs, it's unreal. It really is. So it's it's a partnership where you think, how does that work? But it looks like it absolutely does, and it's one of my favourite partnerships in boxing. Obviously, assisting Don Charles, because obviously we can. I don't, ever want to look like I'm I'm overlooking Don Charles, because I think he deserves a massive amount of credit. Because I think Daniel Dubois, like you say, and Kieran's been an unbelievable addition to it. But as the whole team, I think the turnaround in Daniel Dubois has been absolutely amazing.
And then on the flip side, you've got Ben Davison now in charge of the Anthony Joshua corner, has been for a couple of
Yeah,
fights now. Um, Ben, we were talking about this on our podcast recently, is someone that was kind of a lot of skeptics had question
yeah,
marks around him earlier. He's since proved himself a few times over with Lee Wood, among
yeah.
others. Why do you think that relationship with him and AJ seems to be working so well so far?
Mate, I think, I think it works. 'Cause first of all, when you're saying them, there's a lot of people who was like, online and stuff who'd have digs at Ben and stuff like that. But there's no denying, like, Ben and his team, what they've been doing for a few years now. It's unbelievable. It's unbelievable. And they deserve massive credit as a world-class coaching team, because you mentioned that they've done it at different levels. But I just believe sort of AJ looks like, on what I hear about the he's a bit of a perfectionist where he asks a lot of questions. So I think when AJ is asking questions, and I think Ben and the team there, there's Lee Wilder, there's Big Barry and stuff like that, and there's probably other people I'm missing out there as well. So they break it down, and they break it down very well, and I reckon that's something he really works well off. Do you know what I mean? Like the video analysis, and then they'll look for patterns, and I reckon he'll respond to that really well. It seems to be anyway, doesn't he? And I think that's it. I think AJ is a perfectionist, and I think he likes a lot of that.
Now, you said in the column you weren't sure, and I'm going to put you on the spot, you weren't sure who was the
Yeah,
harder puncher out of Dubois and Joshua.
yeah.
If you had to pick, who would you go for?
Oh, you know what? This sounds like a coward's way out, but honestly, just hear me out. Do you know what I think? And I don't. If you've ever been here, I don't mean that in like a smart ass way. You know, there's like two different kinds of power. There's that thudding, like cumbersome power, like bang, like boom, where you hit you and you just think, oh my god, what was that? Like sort of like sort of thunder. Do you know what I mean? And I reckon that's more Dubois, whereas AJ's, I reckon it's more that flash, like, would you say thunder and lightning? Would you use that as a comparison?
Yeah, I think so.
Do you know what I mean? Like, whereas with AJ, I think it's the sharpness for someone his size, the athletic, how athletic he is. It's the speed and that he gets him over. Whereas, yeah, that's what I think. I feel like Dubois might have the heavier hands. It's a tough one, you know. I'm being a coward here, but I think it's two different types of power. Do you get what I'm saying?
Does that mean that Joshua's maybe the more likely to end it with one shot? Whereas,
Yes, that's what I believe. That is what I believe. I was actually going to say that. I think Dubois has got the power where it's more like, which he don't wrong, he's put a few out, but maybe like Dubois might come more in combinations and wearing someone down. Do you know what I mean? Which he has done the last few fights. Whereas with AJ, you get the feeling it is one more on one shot.
they're both very aggressive. Dubois' promoter, Frank Warren, kind of suggested whoever puts the other on the back foot early on will kind of unlock the door to winning the fight. How true do you think that is? Like, can either of these guys win on the back foot?
They can. They can do, because I think AJ's shown in the Ruiz fight. I thought he boxed well in the Ruiz rematch. He boxed well on the back foot. I reckon he'll be a little bit more comfortable on the back foot than Dubois. But I think it's a great point made by Frank. I do believe it's a great point. But I think Dubois would be a lot better off sort of on the front foot and making AJ work. I think my worry for Dubois when he goes on the back foot, he opens up a little bit, which I think I've mentioned, which he's open for that AJ right hand, which is like a missile. So yeah, I do believe that he will be trying to be on the front foot.
I want to ask you a bit about the undercard as well, because I know you talked about that in the column. It is a really good undercard as well.
Yeah,
Liam Smith against Josh Kelly, I find particularly intriguing.
yeah, it's a fascinating fight.
Yeah, you've got Liam Smith, who's coming off that defeat to Eubank. A lot of questions
Yeah.
around him. Towards the latter end of his career, I think he'd agree. But then
Oh
you've
yeah.
got Josh Kelly, who had a number one position at super welterweight. And he's risking that, I suppose. I don't know if he'll keep it if he loses, but he's
Yeah.
moved up to middleweight for this fight. Who do you think's got more to lose going into this?
It's, you know what? That's an hard on that, because if it, who's got more to lose? Career wise, I would say Liam, in the sense of, if if Liam's on the wrong end of the decision that night, it might be the end for him at world level. Well, you'd think it'd be the end of him at world level. I know you're only one fight away from turning that around, from getting back in the mix, but do you get what I mean? As in, it's coming off the Eubank defeat, and whereas if Josh is moving up in weight and he loses that weight, that's 2 on the bounce, it's going to be tough, isn't it? It's going to be tough. Whereas with Josh has always got the shout of, well, I moved up for the opportunity to fight on this big card. I'll go back down to super welter. So I would say Liam's got the more to lose.
And I'm not going to ask you for your prediction because it's in the column. We want people to go and read that on SecondsOut website or the freebets.com website.
Yeah.
But another really good fight also at middleweight, but with people we're more used to seeing in that division. You got Hamza Sheeraz, who's WBO #1 middleweight, and I think WBC as well at the moment, so he's got plenty of options. Going up against Tyler Denny, although Tyler Denny comes in as the reigning European champion, defending it against Sheeraz. They're both kind of on a high, both on great recent form. How do you kind of weigh this one up?
I think it's a great fight. And I certainly don't believe you can overlook Tyler Denny because he's got the. I bumped into him in the gym the day before. He beat Felix Cash, and it was full of energy. He was just full of energy, and he was just, you could just see he's just loving his boxing. You could just see he's got this confidence about him, not in any way arrogant, but just like this confidence about him where he just can't wait to get in. And I think, his last 3 or 4 fights, even from him defeating my young mate Bradley Ray, he's just grew and grew. And he'll see it again against Hamza Sheeraz. And I think Hamza's in great form, but then also he'll be able to watch that last fight with
Ammo Williams.
The Panther, Ammo Williams, with Ammo Williams. And listen, you'll forget, Hamza was very good. He was in control of the stoppage, but Ammo Williams did have little bits of success in that fight. So there's things he can take from that fight, and he will take from that fight. But I think, listen, there's no denying, I think the size as well will come into play. And you've got to make Hamza, a favourite there. But that's nothing that's going to bother Tyler Denny. But I believe as well, I've said it for a bit, I think Ricky Funes is doing a fantastic job over there at the Goosens gym with Hamza Sheeraz.
And then the one you picked out as potentially fight of the night is 2 guys you've actually shared a ring with in sparring before, in Josh Warrington and Anthony Cacace. We talked about kind of last chances at top level. This may be Warrington's. Cacace coming off a outstanding win, you have to say, over Joe Cordina. And everyone's talked about Cacace kind of in hushed tones for years now about his power and his talent. He's finally got over the line now as well. I know he had the IBO before, but this is a serious one, beating a serious opponent. How do you kind of weigh that one up? I suppose, first of all, actually, tell us about your experiences sparring the 2 of them.
Sparring the 2 of them, I've always spoke very well of them for years. I mean, first of all, the 2 top lads, I actually seen Anto over in Belfast the other week because I was doing a bit of the punditry, and he was over there, and it's nice to see him getting the flowers that he deserved for waiting around for so long, because there's so many people who would have walked away. And Josh, I've knew Josh for years, and it's mad because Josh, I've always tipped him to do, really big things, even when before he burst onto the scene. And by the scene, I mean, like, I think when I remember he beat Rendell Munro in Manchester, but in a Wednesday night in Leeds, and then the support just exploded. Do you know what I mean? The support exploded for him. But I always said, about Josh, people are going, he's not the biggest puncher. 1, he hits harder than you think. But 2, he's physically so strong. And I remember the numbers that he was doing with certain exercises that I used to do. And I used to think that's unbelievably strong for a featherweight. So I think, at this point in his career, I feel like the move up to super featherweight will do him well. And I think I saw like early, odds with the bookies, and I think it's crazy because I think this is a real 50-50 fight. I do. And you say his last, you would think, it'll be Josh's last chance of becoming a world champion. But then there again, like, Anto has worked so long and so hard to get this. He's not going to want it. You've got to remember, Anto's no spring chicken. No. Do you know what I mean? So there really is. It's hard for the loser. Do you know what I mean? they've not got time to rebuild. Do you know what I mean? So it's a fascinating fight. It really is. And I think everyone knows Cacace carries serious power. He does. But I think honestly, this is my fight of the night, and I sound of a coward again. But this is one where I'm there's a shame there has to be a winner or a loser, but I cannot wait to see this.
Great stuff, mate. Really appreciate your time as always. Yeah, good luck in the rest of the camp with Rhiannon, and yeah, we'll look forward to catching up again next week.
That nice one, man. We'll catch up soon.